The early morning fog clung to the rugged mountains like a shroud as the Anders family made their way up the winding road to the old cabin. Nestled among towering pines and steep granite outcrops, the cabin had been in the family for generations, a retreat from the pressures of modern life. This Easter promised a rare escape, a weekend of egg hunts, hearty meals, and the simple joy of nature. Yet beneath the surface of this idyllic scene, a dark undercurrent was already stirring. As the family unloaded the car, the air carried a chill that hinted at the unpredictable mountain weather. Emma Anders, the matriarch, busied herself with setting up the inside of the cabin, her mind filled with memories of past celebrations. Her husband, Mark, started a fire in the old stone fireplace, while their two children, Lily and Jake, raced ahead, exploring every nook of the cabin. The cabin itself was a character in the story, a weathered structure with creaking floorboards and a history that whispered secrets through its walls. Mark recalled that their grandfather had once mentioned strange incidents that occurred in the mountains during holidays, but the stories had faded into mere family folklore over the years. That morning, as the family set out to gather eggs hidden in the lush, dew-covered grass, none of them could have foreseen that this Easter would be etched in their memories for all the wrong reasons. Later that afternoon, as the sun began to dip behind the mountains, a knock on the door startled the family. Emma, slightly unnerved but always welcoming, opened it to find a man in an unusual costume. He was dressed head to toe in a bunny suit, the Easter bunny, complete with floppy ears and a painted-on grin. His eyes, however, were cold and calculating beneath the mask, and his presence seemed oddly out of place against the rustic backdrop. "Happy Easter," he said in a cheery tone that did little to mask the underlying menace. In his gloved hands he carried a large wicker basket filled with decorated eggs. The children, Lily and Jake, squealed with delight, immediately forgetting any apprehensions as they eagerly reached out to take the eggs. Mark and Emma exchanged a wary glance. It wasn't common for strangers to wander up to their remote cabin on such a holiday, but the man's smile and the sheer absurdity of his costume lent him an air of harmlessness, at least at first. For the next few days, the mysterious Easter bunny became a part of the Anders family's routine. Every morning he would appear, leaving behind his basket of beautifully decorated eggs. At first, it seemed like an elaborate prank or perhaps a local community member's idea of festive fun. However, the eggs were not the only items in his basket. Hidden among them were small objects that the children found curious: a tarnished key, a small notebook filled with cryptic symbols, and a few odd trinkets that none of them could identify. Lily, the more inquisitive of the two, began to ask questions about these strange gifts. "Mom, what's this key for? And why are there strange drawings in this book?" Emma would dismiss her queries with a light laugh, attributing the odd items to the eccentricity of a local artist or a playful neighbor. But a nagging feeling began to tug at her heart. Mark too grew unsettled. His mind raced with scenarios, each more disturbing than the last. The man's unwavering punctuality, his habit of watching the family from a distance after delivering his eggs, and the increasingly bizarre items in his basket all suggested something far from innocent. One evening after dinner, Mark decided to confront the matter. He followed the mysterious visitor discreetly as he left the cabin, his eyes fixed on the figure disappearing into the forest. The chill night air did little to calm his mounting anxiety. As he crept through the underbrush, he noticed something that made his blood run cold: a series of crudely drawn symbols etched into the bark of a tree. They resembled the drawings in the notebook, and they were fresh, as if someone had just carved them moments ago. Returning to the cabin, Mark confided in Emma about what he had seen. "I don't think this is a harmless prank, Emma. I saw markings on a tree and they match something I saw in the notebook that came with the eggs. We need to find out who he really is." Over the next day, Mark and Emma began their own investigation. They questioned neighbors in the nearby village, seeking any clue about a man in a bunny costume who roamed the area. Rumors began to surface: a series of disappearances over the past few Easters, unexplained vanishings of hikers, and whispers of a man who left behind puzzling symbols near his victims' homes. The local police, it turned out, had treated the cases as isolated incidents, unconnected and unsolvable. The investigation took a sinister turn when they discovered that the man had a pattern. Every Easter he would appear in a different part of the mountains, always during the holiday weekend, and the only evidence left behind was his gift: a basket of eggs containing objects that hinted at his twisted mind. The true horror was not in the costume or the eggs but in the dark intent behind them. This was no festive character. It was a predator who had learned to use the guise of holiday cheer to lure in unsuspecting families. As the final day of the holiday approached, Mark and Emma decided that it was time to set a trap. They enlisted the help of a local officer who was skeptical yet intrigued by their findings. That Easter morning, the Anders family prepared for the egg hunt with a sense of unease they couldn't quite shake. The children, blissfully unaware of the danger, ran about with baskets in hand, their laughter echoing through the crisp mountain air. The man in the bunny suit appeared once again, his costume even more tattered than before. He handed out his basket filled with the usual assortment of eggs and odd trinkets. But this time his eyes, barely visible behind the mask, held an unmistakable glint of menace. Mark and Emma exchanged a determined glance. Their moment to act had arrived. Mark trailed the man at a safe distance, while the officer and a couple of local volunteers discreetly positioned themselves along the narrow mountain paths. The man, seemingly unaware of the trap that was being set, continued on his mysterious route. The family watched from a distance, their hearts pounding in anticipation and fear. The tension mounted as the man reached a clearing surrounded by dense, dark woods. There, hidden beneath a large boulder, lay the evidence of his twisted activities. A hidden cache of belongings belonging to previous victims. Personal effects, photographs, and even more disturbing items that spoke of a long history of predation. The clearing was transformed from a benign mountain hideaway into a macabre shrine of his misdeeds. At that moment, the officer and the volunteers sprang into action. Shouting orders, they rushed forward to apprehend the man. But he was cunning and desperate. The ensuing struggle was chaotic and brutal. The man fought back with a ferocity that shocked everyone, his movements almost predatory as he lunged and grappled. In the melee, the bright pastel of his bunny suit was stained with blood, a grim reminder that this was no clownish figure but a hardened criminal driven by a perverse sense of holiday cheer. Mark, torn between his desire to protect his family and the urge to see justice done, watched as the confrontation escalated. The man managed to slip away in the confusion, disappearing into the dark forest with an agility that belied his bulky costume. The officer shouted after him, but the echo of his words was swallowed by the vast wilderness. In the days that followed, the truth began to unravel. The police, bolstered by the evidence recovered from the clearing, launched an intensive manhunt. Interviews with locals revealed that similar incidents had occurred in remote areas over the past decade, each one coinciding with Easter. The pattern was undeniable. A predator using the guise of the Easter Bunny to gain the trust of isolated families, leaving behind a trail of horror masked by the veneer of holiday festivity. For the Anders family, the experience left deep scars. The once beloved Easter traditions were forever tainted by the memory of the man in the bunny suit. Emma found herself haunted by nightmares of the costumed figure, and Mark struggled with the realization that danger had been lurking so close to home. Their children, once filled with the innocence of holiday joy, now viewed every rustle of the wind or unexpected sound in the woods with trepidation. In the months that followed, the manhunt continued, and authorities eventually uncovered a string of cold cases linked to the same modus operandi. His identity, shrouded in mystery for so long, was finally revealed. A man with a troubled past whose early years had been marked by abuse and neglect. His transformation into the Easter Bunny was not the result of a delusional mind driven by fantastical notions, but rather a calculated persona crafted to exploit the trust and vulnerability of families seeking solace in tradition. He had learned that the guise of a harmless holiday figure could provide the perfect cover for his crimes, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can hide behind even the most familiar masks. The case sent shockwaves through the community, prompting a re-evaluation of local traditions and a renewed awareness of the potential dangers that can lurk in seemingly benign celebrations. The mountains, once a symbol of peace and escape, had become a setting for a real-life horror story, a testament to the fact that evil does not need supernatural powers to be terrifying. For the Anders family, each Easter would henceforth be a bittersweet reminder of the day when the true horror of human nature was laid bare. They found solace in the support of friends and neighbors, but the scars of that fateful holiday would remain with them forever. The cabin, once a cherished refuge, became a silent witness to the tragedy, a relic of a time when innocence was betrayed by a cunning predator who used the promise of joy to mask his sinister intent. As the years passed, whispers of the Easter harvest, the moniker given to the horrifying spree, continued to circulate among the mountain communities. Families began to question old traditions and sought ways to protect themselves from the hidden threats that could lurk even in the heart of cherished celebrations. And though the man in the bunny suit was eventually captured after a lengthy investigation, the memory of his twisted acts served as a grim reminder that evil, in its most real and human form, could be far more terrifying than any ghost or ghoul. One quiet morning, long after that fateful Easter weekend, Emma Anders returned to the cabin alone. In the solitude of the early dawn, she found herself drawn to the small wooden table in the corner, a table that had once been laden with festive decorations and the promise of new beginnings. On it, she discovered a lone, intricately decorated egg hidden away beneath a folded piece of paper. With trembling hands, she unfolded the note. In simple, stark handwriting, it read, "Remember, the mask can hide many truths." For a moment, Emma felt a chill that wasn't entirely due to the cool mountain air. The egg, a symbol of life and renewal, now served as a reminder of the fragile boundary between trust and terror. It was a parting message from a nightmare that had touched every corner of their lives, a message that echoed long after the man in the bunny suit had been unmasked and brought to justice. In that moment, as the first light of day broke over the mountains, Emma realized that the true horror was not confined to a single Easter, nor was it bound by the seasons. It was a persistent reminder that beneath the surface of even the most cherished traditions, darkness could lurk, waiting always to reveal itself in the most unexpected of ways. The Anders family, though scarred, began to rebuild their lives. Each Easter they chose to honor the memory of what had been lost, not by forgetting but by remaining vigilant, a tribute to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unthinkable horror. And as the mountains stood silent witness, they learned that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are not born of myth or magic, but are very real, lurking behind a smile, hidden behind a mask, ready to strike when least expected. Thus, the story of that Easter in the mountains became a cautionary tale, a reminder that in a world where trust can be so easily exploited, sometimes the most innocuous figure may hide the darkest intentions.
That's it for tonight's tale. But don't worry, there's always more where that came from. Be sure to stay tuned for even more nerve-thrilling horror stories every single week. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join us here at the Hollow Horror. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Until then, stay safe. Or stay scared. See you next time.